आचार्य जी।
ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
आचार्यपर्यन्तां
वन्दे
वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्।
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
ॐ सहना भवतु
सहना भवतु
सहनौ
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु
सह वीर्यं
सह वीर्यं
करवावहै
करवावहै
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै।
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
ॐ
ॐ
शान्ति
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 शान्ति शान्ति।
शान्तिः। हरि ओम नमः शिवाय.
हरि ओम नमः शिवाय।
So we are on Taittiriya Upanishad, Bhrigu Anuvaka number 4. And I will request Rituji to please chant the Anuvaka.
Thank you, Acharya. Om Mano Brahmete Vyajanat Manaso Heva Kalvimani Bhutani Jayante Manasa Jatani Jivanti Manah Prayanthyabhisamvishanti te Tadvijnaya Punareva Varunam Pitaramupasasara Adhihi Bhagavo Brahmeti Tadumho Vacha Tapasa Brahma Vijijnasasva Tapo Brahmeti Satapo Tapyata Satapastatva.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to hear both of them chanting because it gives the real, the real atmosphere of Vedic chanting where a lot of people are chanting.
Yes.
Okay. So we saw in the previous Anuvaka that he was asked, Bhrigu was asked to go back. And he said, meditate, do more manana. And then he did tapas taptva. He did more mananam. And what is the conclusion that he arrived at? This is given in this particular Anuvaka. And the inquiry is in exactly the same manner. So what did he do? From Pranamaya Kosha in the last Anuvaka, where he went to Manomaya Kosha and then came to the conclusion that everything comes from Samashti Mana. Right? So we should remember here that mind is also matter, Sukshma Dravyam in Shastra. And a lot of people define the mind as a flow of thoughts. Okay. So this is something which we should be careful about as Vedantic students. We don't accept the definition of the mind as a flow of thoughts. What is the definition of the mind? We are all advanced students, so we should know. We have talked about the how knowledge takes place.
Acharyaji, the mind is the that aspect of the Sukshma Shariram from which the thoughts arise.
Yes.
That is the function of.
Very much. So we said that if you want to see something, let us say you're seeing a pot, then the vritti actually flows out from the mind, envelops the pot, and in the vritti there is consciousness that also envelops the pot. So that is the method in which we say knowledge takes place. Therefore, mind is not a flow of thoughts. Manaha is the locus, the very locus of the place of the thoughts. The thoughts arrive from the manaha, they arise from the manaha, they are sustained by the manaha, and they resolve into the manaha. So remember, mind is a substance, it's a dravyam, it's a vastu, but it is a non-tangible vastu, and that's why it's called sukshma dravyam. So even when thoughts are not there, the idea behind this explanation is what? Even when thoughts are not there, the mind will survive. When we say mind is resolved in sushupti, it doesn't mean that mind is not there. Mind is a dravyam, it's a substance, and therefore it will continue to be there. but it is not functioning. And therefore the vritti, the thoughts, they are a function of the mind, not the mind itself. And that is why in Sushupti Avastha, when the function of the mind is not happening, the mind continues to be. And this mind continuing to be without functioning, that is what we call as the resolution of the mind. Okay. Now, another small idea which we should remember is that the word Maya, you know, Annamaya, Swaranamaya, Pranamaya, the word Maya, when you see as a suffix to a particular word, you should remember that it conveys the meaning of product, karyam. Therefore, Swaranamaya. Swaranamaya means it is a product of Swaranam. Swaranam is gold. Swaranamaya is a karyam of Swaranam. That is, normally the karyam is what? The ornament. Now, another important idea, when in the context of Shastra, we add the word Maya, it refers to, it gives the idea of the micro product. Okay, the word Maya suffix should be taken as an indicator that the reference is to the Vyashti Karyam, the micro product. And when you use the word without the suffix, it refers to the Samashti Karanam, the macro cause. Why am I saying this? Because when you say Prana Maya, the Maya indicates that we are referring to the Pranamaya Kosha. Right? So Pranamaya is the Maya stands for the Kosha part, the Vyashti part, the individual micro part. And therefore Pranamaya means Pranamaya Kosha. That is Vyashti, which is the product, the Karyam. While when you use that word Prana without the Maya, you are saying Prana. Then as I said, having dropped the Maya, the Prana is then the Samashti Karanam. And this is what Bhrigu discovers here, that the Manaha is a Karyam, the product. And there is, of course, Shruti Pramanam for this and Yukti Pramanam for this, right? What is the Karanam for the mind? It is Samashti Manaha. So Manomaya is the Karyam, the product. Manaha simply is nothing but Samashti Manaha, which is Hiranyagarbha or Brahmaji, right? That is and there is Shruti Pramanam to support this. Then there is logic also, Yukti Pramanam. The mind is a product. And therefore, what is the logic? It must have been born. All products are born. So that is Yukti Pramanam. And since the mind is born, it is a Vyashti Karyam. Obviously, it cannot be the Brahman that he is looking for. And therefore, he is not satisfied. He goes back to his father and says, please teach me Brahman. So Varuna again says the same thing, that you need to go and meditate. You need more manana. Now, if you look at the totality of the Anuvakas, you will see that there is a particular prakriya which Varuna has been telling Bhrigu to do without actually indicating the name of the prakriya. What is the prakriya?
Panchakosha Viveka.
Panchakosha Viveka, right? So then what happens? Bhrigu goes and does more manana and then comes to a conclusion. And this is going to be said in Anuvaka number 5. So, Rituji, over to you.
Om Vijnanam Brahmetavyajanat विज्ञानाध्येव खल्विमानि भूतानि जायन्ते विज्ञानेन जातानि जीवन्ते विज्ञानं प्रयन्त्यभिसंविशन्तीति तद्विज्ञाय पुनरेव वरुणं पितरमुपससार अधीहि भगवो ब्रह्मेति तगुंहोवाच तपसा ब्रह्म विजिज्ञासस्व तपो ब्रह्मेति स तपोतप्यत स तपस्तप्त्वा.
So, from the Manomaya Kosha, Bhrigu now proceeds to the Vijnanamaya Kosha. And there again, he applies the same definition that Brahman is actually Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, Karanam. And then the first, his first conclusion is that, okay, so Brahman is Samashti Vijnana. So he's proceeding in orders of Sukshmatva. What is, because Vijnanam is more subtle than Manaha, which is more subtle than Pranaha, which is more subtle than Annam. So you can see that the subtlety is increasing. The subtleness is increasing. Now, if you want to understand this grading, we can use, for example, the three uh, faculties which we have: Jnana Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Kriya Shakti. Right? Every activity in our life is utilizing these three Shaktis. And the movement is always from Jnanam to Ichha to Kriya. You can understand. Supposing you get to know about something new, you know, then only there will be Ichha for it. And if there is Ichha for it, then only there will be activity leading to acquisition. For example, in my childhood, I did not have any desire for mobile phones. Why? Jnanam was not there. No mobile was in existence, therefore no jnanam. And therefore the jnanam, which is the karanam for ichha, and ichha is the karanam for kriya. And there is a gradation. Jnanam is the most subtle, ichha is slightly more subtle, more gross, and kriya is the grossest of the three. Right? So ichha is subtle, kriya is gross. And here Vijnanamaya represents what? That Jnana Shakti. Manomaya represents Ichha Shakti. Right? So Kriya is indicated by Prana because Prana is made of Samashti Rajoguna. So you have Vijnanamaya being more subtle than Manomaya, being more subtle than Pranamaya. Right? This is what is talked about. And Samashti Vijnanam is what? Is Hiranyagarbha. So the word Hiranyagarbha may not need explanation. Hiranyam means what?
Golden.
Gold. Gold. Why is Hiranyagarbha called Hiranyagarbha? Why is the adjective gold? Garbha is, of course, the womb. Right. So Hiranyagarbha is the womb of what? The entire universe. Literally, Sarvam. But what is golden about it? Okay.
The
Why?
mind, the jnanam.
Yes, but why is it being compared to gold?
Is it like the best being bigged up?
It shines,
Shining.
shows.
All ladies should know. Why do you prefer gold to copper?
Shining.
Pure and shining.
The shine never goes away.
Ever shining.
Ever shining gold. So ever shining knowledge. The brilliance of knowledge does not fade. And therefore Hiranyagarbha, the very womb of all knowledge. And therefore Hiranyam can also mean, in this context, it can mean Sarvajnana, all knowing, omniscient. And that is why Bhrigu came to the conclusion that Vijnanam is Brahman. Right? Samashti Vijnanam, Hiranyagarbha. But he meditated upon it, and what is the logic for him to conclude that Vijnanam cannot, that Samashti Vijnanam, Hiranyagarbha, cannot be Brahman? What is that logic?
So this also has, as you said, the Vijnana Maya is the product and it is born.
Vijnana Maya is fine. He's come away from Vijnana Maya and he's come to Vijnanam, the Samashti Karanam for Vijnana Maya. And now he's saying that Vijnana Maya is what they call not Brahman. That is the conclusion he has reached. I'm asking what is the reason for the conclusion? Because he can't just conclude, right? He has to have a logic. When he goes to his father, he has to explain to his father, no, dad, I think this is the reason why Vijnana is not Brahman. What is the logic?
It's part of a Karya Karan relationship.
Explain.
Because from Samashti comes, from
We are not talking about
Hiranyagarbha comes.
Veshti at all. No, we are not talking about Veshti at all. We're talking about Samashti Vijnana.
Samashti Vijnanam is an aspect of Hiranyagarbha which is also born,
Very good.
which is created.
Hiranyagarbha is born. Where is the Pramanam?
Mundaka.
Yes.
Mundaka Upanishad.
Quote it. You are advanced students. Quote. Prathama. What is the quote? Prathama.
Prathama Sambhabhuva.
Sambhabhuva. Prathama Sambhabhuva.
He was first born.
Panchikarana.
Right. He was first born. And therefore, since Hiranyagarbha is born, obviously he has to have a product. And therefore he cannot be. Yeah. So finally, Bhrigu concludes that Vijnanam is not Brahman, it's a Karyam. And therefore he goes to his father again. See, I'm not explaining the individual words because we have explained it in great detail in the earlier Anuvaka. I'm just explaining the logic. So then he concludes that, okay, Vijnanam cannot be Brahman. And therefore he goes back to his father. I request Tuji to chant Anuvaka number 6, Tuji and Riveshji.
Om Anando Brahmetavyajaat Anandadhyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante Anandena jatani jivanti Anandam prayantyabhisamvishanti te Saisha bhargavi varuni vidya Parame vyoman pratishtita Ya evam veda pratitishthati Annavanannado bhavati Mahan bhavati prajaya pashubhir brahmavarchasena Mahan kirtya.
So in his commentary on this verse, Shankara first says that you should remember that here Panchakosha teaching is not a fresh teaching in this Upanishad. What did he mean by that? Have we seen Panchakosha earlier in this Upanishad?
Yes, he started with that.
Right, Brahmavalli, right? Brahmanandavalli, we saw. And therefore Shankara says that you should recall that it is not fresh teaching, it's just a repetition. So here what happens? Bhrigu travels further inside. And what is interior to Vijnanamaya Kosha? It's Anandamaya Kosha. And then he says, this is Ananda Atma, right? But here, this is the normal understanding in Panchakosha, that from Vijnanamaya Kosha, you travel to Anandamaya Kosha. Normally, this is the understanding. But here we have to note that he is not talking about a Maya. Anando Brahmeti. Anandamaya, he doesn't say. So what is he indicating?
Atma?
He is indicating Ananda Atma. He is indicating the original Ananda, Bimba Ananda, not a kosha. Right? So we are not talking about Anandamaya kosha at all. Bhrigu skips Anandamaya kosha completely and he discovers that Ananda is Brahman. Therefore, whenever we say Ananda, we should say, also remember it is the same as Atma, it is the same as Brahman. Therefore, Atma and Brahman are one and the same. And another word for them is Ananda, the pure Ananda principle. The word Ananda, therefore, here is not reflected Ananda because it is the same as Brahman. Right? So now look at these words. Anandhyeva kalvimani bhutani jayante. Anandena jatani jivanti. Anandam prayanti abhisambashanti iti. So use of the word Ananda here is in the, look at Anandat eva khalu imani bhutani jayanti. You can understand? Anandat eva khalu imani bhutani jayanti. From Ananda alone, all these beings are born. Anandena jatani jivanti. In that Ananda alone, all the beings are sustained. Anandam prayanti abhisambashanti iti. In that Ananda only prayanti, all the bhutanis, they are resolved. So the usage of the word Ananda here is as Srishti Sthiti Laya Karana. Therefore, it cannot be taken as kosha. Because kosha is a experiential use. And any experience has a beginning and an end, and therefore is a product. But here, it is the very substratum of everything, of all the beings. Therefore, Ananda here refers to Chaitanya Tattvam, consciousness principle, Atma, Brahman. Now you might say, then why use the word Ananda? So in the commentaries, the Acharyas say that the Ananda here should be understood as Anantaha. Where did you come across this kind of equation? Where it is said that from which you can extract that Ananda. Yes, please go
Satyam
ahead.
Satyam Jnanam Anandam.
Jnanam.
Satyam Jnana Anantam Brahma. Okay. So the word Ananda is to be translated as Ananta, infinite, because it has to be infinite. Whenever you say happiness, bliss, all these things are temporary. Therefore, Ananta is what? Purnatvam. And therefore, Ananda has to be taken as Purnatvam alone, which is the consciousness principle, the Chit or Sat Tattva, existence principle, consciousness principle. Thus, he is saying that from this Ananda alone, Khalu, imani bhutani jayante. All beings, the entire universe is born. And from here, we should extend the same five principles of consciousness, which we said, not part, product, all those things. We should extend that to Ananda also. And therefore, Chit, Sat, and Ananda should not be taken as objectives, as adjectives. Why? Because a word becomes an adjective when it is associated with the object. Right? You say a red flower. The word red is relevant only as long as the flower is there. So when you say red flower, the word is there. But when the flower goes away, then that word red has no meaning in that context. Right? But here, so what happens is, here that meaning is not to be given. You cannot say Sat, Chit, and Ananda are are what you call adjectives, because adjectives mean that they are related to something else. There is a sambandha of the adjective with the noun, and therefore it has to be taken as nature of yourself only. So the noun, sat, the nouns, three nouns, sat, chit, and ananda, they are not adjectives anymore. And when they are nouns, what are they used as? They are used as my own nature. Sat, chit, ananda is I alone, my own self, my own nature, and therefore it cannot be experienced. So he comes here with all this logic. Bhrigu comes here, and then he finds that Anand Tattvam doesn't have any other cause. Right? He realizes that he cannot logically say that this Ananda principle has another Karanam, and therefore he has to conclude that Ananda is the ultimate Karanam. How? How does he do that? First of all, Shruti points out that Chaitanya. So you remember Sat, Chit and Ananda. All three are words used synonymously for Brahman. So this Shruti points out that Chaitanyam is never a product. It's the Karanam. What is that? Is the Shruti Pramanam. What is the Yukti Pramanam? This consciousness principle, the Sakshi, is not subject to change. It cannot, because it is not a product, it is not subject to change. And there is Najayate Mriyate Vakadachit, which can be taken as both Shruti and Smriti Pramanam. How? Why do I say that Najayate Mriyate Vakadachit is both Shruti and Smriti? The Smriti part you're all familiar with, right? Where do you find Najayate Mriyate Vakadachit?
Bhagavad Gita.
Gita, second chapter.
Do you find it in Shruti also?
Yeah, Kathopanishad.
Kathopanishad. And
Vipaschit.
therefore Shruti and Smriti both, right? And therefore, Dhruva concludes that this has no further karyam. It is nirvikaram. It has to be the karanam alone. And that is what he says here. Anando brahmeti vyajana. Anandaha brahma iti vyajana. He has understood that Ananda alone is Brahman. How do we know that this is the final understanding of his? Look at the mantra and tell me. How do you know that this is the final understanding?
There is no punareva varunam pitaram upasasara.
There is no Punareva Varunam. Sara. He does not go back to Varuna. Okay. So with this, he has understood. He doesn't need to go back. And therefore, Shruti says, Saisha Bhargavi Varuni Vidya. This particular knowledge, Sa Esha Bhargavi Varuni Vidya. This knowledge given by Varunaha to Bhrigu is given a new title. Bhargavi Vidya. Bhargavi means the one that which has been received by Bhrigu. So Bhargavi, received by Bhrigu, it becomes Bhargavi Vidya. Okay. So then what? Parame Vyoman Pratishtitha. This has resulted, culminated, Pratishtitha in Sakshi Chaitanyam. Parame Vyoman. And that is located where? Parame Vyoman means in the Hridaya Akasha, space of the heart, which we started with. So this Brahman, this Ananda is located there. And then the phalam is given. So he says, Saya evam Veda Pratitishthati. Ya evam Veda. Whoever has understood this, has gone through this Panchakosha Viveka Prakriya and has understood, Sa Pratitishthati, he will be established in Brahman. So remember, this is Jivan Mukti. because this gentleman who is doing this has gone through Panchakosha Vivaka, is still alive. He's got his body. So, Pratitishthati, this is the spiritual worldly, spiritual benefit that he has become a Jivan Mukta. And there is Laukika benefit also. Annavan Annado Bhavati. He will have plenty of Annam, plenty of food. And not only that, it's not important to have plenty of food only. You must have the capacity to enjoy the food, the health to enjoy the food. And therefore, he says, Annadaha Bhavati. He enjoys this food. Okay. And here, some commentators have said that this wisdom is not only capable of making you Jivan Mukta, but because it resolves a lot of mental issues, a lot of psychosomatic issues. A lot of psychosomatic issues are associated with the idea that I am the body and the mind. And having severed that connection, those issues are resolved. Therefore, the mind is no longer disturbed, and the non disturbed mind is also good for the body. So, some commentators say that he is not only enjoys the food, he is physically fit also. And Mahan Bhavati, he will become a very great person. How? Prajaya, he will have good children. So, in the context of a teacher or a sannyasi for that matter, Praja can be understood as Shishyaha. So he will have good Shishyas. And Pashubihi, so he will have plenty of wealth, plenty of cattle, so that the Gurukulam can run very smoothly. And Brahma Varchasena, Brahma Varchasena means he will have the brilliance of Brahma Jnanam. Mahan Kirtya, he will become a very, very famous teacher. With this, the Panchakosha Viveka topic is over.
So, Acharyaji, may I ask, why is it called Bhargavi Vidya and what is different? It is getting Atmanyanam through Vichara.
It is Sravanam Sravanam only. Sravanam and Mananam only. It is given a name Bhargava Vidya not to distinguish it, but in the context of the Upanishads, since it is Bhrigu who gets the Vidya, it's called Bhargava Vidya.
Oh.
It is the same. Atmajnanam, Brahmajnanam, all same, different names. Okay. Rituji, Anuvaka number 7, please.
Om Annanandindyat Tadvratam Prano va Annam Shariramannadam Prane Shariram Pratishtitam Sharire Pranav Pratishthitah Tadetadannamanye Pratishtitam Saya etadannamanye Pratishtitam Veda Pratitishthate Annavanannado Bhavati Mahan Bhavati Prajaya Pashubhir Brahma Varchasena Mahan Kirtya.
So, the Panchakosha Viveka is over. Now, in the following Anuvakas, some upasanas are being given, and also some disciplines, which they call vratams, resolutions which you have to take. So, when you do an upasana, then sometimes you keep a resolution, I will do this. That's a vratam. And here you will see that the Annam is very recurring idea here. Why is Annam important? Because Annamaya Kosha is the first stage of the Vedantic inquiry. Why is that so? Because you have to start with that with which you are most preoccupied. And before coming to Vedanta, when you say I, you normally refer to the body, the Annamaya Kosha. Right? And therefore you start with the Annamaya Kosha, and that is why Annam is quite important idea here. And a particular meditation is going to be prescribed now. So we will have to reorient our mind to look at the universe not as just matter, but as the very body of the Lord. So the universe is actually akhanda, it's unfragmented, undivided, and is one big organism, universal cosmic organism, which we call Virat Ishvara. Right? Now, the thing is that this is the beauty of Sanatana Dharma. In almost all religions, other religions, Ishvara is a separate entity. Right? In Sanskrit, we call it Tathastha Ishvara. Tathastha means that which is different from you. The bank of a river is different from the river. Therefore, Tathastha Ishvara is a Ishvara who is different from me and different from the world. And this is the vision of almost all other religions. But Sanatana Dharma says no. Vedanta says no. You have to understand that Ishvara is not different from you. Right? Yeah. Like when you say this is my hand, you may say this is my hand, but you don't consider that different from you because it is a interconnected part of your body. So there is a symbiotic relationship. Right? You are dependent on the hand is dependent upon you. Similarly, is the case of Ishvara. The Jiva's relationship with Ishvara is interdependent, symbiotic. And this is what Shruti is going to tell us. And for this, three pairs of objects will be taken and instructions will be given to practice upasana upon each one of those pairs, seeing this interdependence of the pair. And this interdependence is presented in the form of two sambandhas. So one is annam annadaha sambandha, and one is pratisthita sambandha. Right? So annam annada sambandha. The consumer consume relationship. The eater eaten relationship. What is that? In terms of the body, while living, the body consumes annam. Right? After death of the body is consumed by annam. How do you understand that? How should you understand that? This is not a new idea. We have discussed before.
The physical body needs, the Annamaya Kosha needs Annam for growth
Correct.
and sustenance.
Correct.
When the physical body drops, it goes back into the into this um, Panchabhuta, the earth, the Prithvi.
Right. Earth is not taken as annam. Why?
It, please repeat, Acharya ji.
See, we are saying there is a annam annadaha sambandha. There is a eater-eaten relationship. The first part is simple to understand. Annam annadaha, you eat. Your body needs annam for growth. Right? When the body dies, it's whichever way you look at it, whether you put it in the funeral pyre or not, ultimately it goes back to the earth, Prithvi. But then it's going back to earth, right? And if you have to say this statement, annam annada sambandha, then what you are saying is that the body consumes annam while living, and annam consumes body after death. So you're equating annam to Prithvi. Why is that so?
Upalakshanam for the Panchamahabhuta.
Any other idea?
The food and the, something to sustain comes from the Prithvi.
Annam comes from Prithvi only, right? So the cause and the product are not different. And therefore, here that understanding has to be clear. By living, the body consumes Annam. When dead, Annam consumes the body. And the second statement, you have to take it as Annam is the Prithvi. So that is the Annam Annadaha Sambandhaha. And then Pratishtha Pratisthita Sambandhaha. The supported relationships. So easy to understand. When we are children, our parents supported us. There is a supported relationship. When we become adults and they grow old, that relationship is reversed. The supported, the child becomes the supporter. So these are the two types of sambandha. So remember, there are two ideas. There are two types of sambandha, but the sambandha is to be practiced upon three different pairs, right? So what are the pairs? The first pair is prana and sharira. And this is given in the seventh Anuvaka. So what is the upasana? It consists of seeing these two, prana and sharira, in these two sambandhas as the supporter supported and as the consumer consumed. That relationship between prana and shariram has to be seen. In the next Anuvaka, the eighth Anuvaka, two other pairs are taken, Agni and Jalam. And similarly, these two sambandhas, supporter supported, consumer consumed. These are to seen between Agni and Jalam. The ninth Anuvaka takes Prithvi and Akasha, and you have to see the same two relationships. The idea of the Upasana is to enable us to see that there is nothing really independent in the universe. There is a dependence of everybody on everything and everything and everybody. And this is important because dharma is defined as harmony. And Krishna said earlier that the cycle should not be disturbed. So the dharma is defined as the manner of living, a lifestyle in which you do not, you know, disturb this relationship. You do not destroy this relationship. Rather, you nurture it. So what is the Bhagavad Gita verse which express this idea?
Chapter 3, the cosmic
Chapter
cycle.
3.
I like the fact that you'll remember.
Yeah.
But evam pravritam chakram nanuvartayati hayaha aghayurindriya ramaha gam partha sajivati. So when you cut trees, for example, you are not keeping this relationship alive because trees and oxygen, there is a symbiotic relationship. Trees absorb carbon dioxide, which I breathe out. And when I breathe out carbon dioxide, the trees absorb that and then give out oxygen, which I breathe in. So I should not disturb that dharma. So Krishna says the one who does not know this cyclic relationship is selfish. And therefore, Mogham Partha Sajivati, he has wasted one life. So these three upasanas put together, we can think of as a Virat Vishwa Upasana. And some vratams are prescribed, some spiritual disciplines. Some vratam is spiritual discipline. The first vratam is what? Annam na nitya. Do not criticize food which has been served. And you must remember, yadracha lava santushtaha. Be happy with whatever you have got. Annam na nitya. Do not criticize food. Tad vratam. So you'll find that a Vedantic does namaskara before he eats food. He never criticizes whatever it is. Because Annam Brahma. And Shankara writes here, all this is more important. You should never criticize food because Annam alone is the Karanam for Annamaya Koshaha. And he writes, Kim cha Annena Dwarabhutena Brahma Vijnatam. He says, because Annam is the very gateway, Dwarabhutena is the very gateway, Brahma Vijnatam, for understanding Brahman. And Yasmat, Tasmat, because of that reason, he gives a very nice word. Gurumeva Annam na Nidya. Just as you do not criticize your Guru, you should place Annam on the same standing and not criticize Annam. Now we look at the first upasana. Prano va Annam. Prana Shakti is the same, is compared to Annam, the food you consume. And Shariram Annadam. Shariram, the body, is the consumer. So remember, pranava annam, shariram annadaha. Shariram is the consumer not only of the annam, but also of the prana. Why? When the food is consumed, it is inside your body. When you breathe in, where is the prana? Inside your body. So that is the comparison made. And therefore, shariram is annadaha, the consumer. And prana and annam are the consumed annam. This is the annam annadaha sambandha. Consumer, consumed body, consumed relationship, both between body and annam and body and prana. Then we said there is a second sambandha, pratishtha pratishtita sambandha. So he says prane shariram pratishthitam. This is in the Mulam. Body is supported by prana. Why? Body cannot be alive if it is not blessed by prana shakti. Therefore, prana is the supporter. Right? That is the first part. The body is supported, that prana is supported. Body is supported by the prana. What about the reverse? Sharire pranam pratishthaha. Pratishthaha. Prana is supported by shariram. The first is what? Prana supports shariram. Now it is what? Sharire prana pratishtitaha. Prana is supported by shariram. How? The prana is kriya shakti, right? Prana shakti is kriya shakti. But this kriya shakti can function when only when there is a body enclosure. The shakti has to be in the golakam, which is the body enclosure. Then only prana can function. So in that sense, prana is supported by the body. Am I clear? Body is supported by prana because without prana, body will die. Therefore, prana is supported. But prana is also supported by shariram because for prana to function, the body must be there. Therefore, prana can function as kriya shakti only when the enclosure of shariram is there. And therefore, prana is supported by body. Therefore, they are mutually supported. Prana supports body, body supports prana. Right? Then what do they say? Tadetat annam anne pratishthitam. So here remember there are two annams. Annam anne. Right? Tadetat annam anne. There are two annams and you have to very carefully understand. The first annam is prana and the second annam is body, shariram. Therefore, they are mutually supported. There is interdependence. How? Annamaya and Pranamaya kosha can function only in the presence of each other. Without Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha can do no action. Without Pranamaya kosha, Annamaya kosha cannot act. And so this is a total upasana. You look at the upasana like this, and then you meditate upon it. What is the benefit? Saya etad annam anne pratishtitam veda. Saya etad annam anne pratishtitam veda. Whoever, so the Veda here is upasana, meditates, not knowledge. Whoever meditates upon this mutual interdependence, what happens to him? Pratitishthati. He will have good support in his life. He will have friends, family, and he will have the Lord. So there will be good supporters in his life. He will be well supported. Not only that, annavan annado bhavati, mahan bhavati, prajaya pashubhir brahmavarchasena kirtya. He will get worldly benefits. Prajaya, he'll be well known. He'll become a great person because of prajaya, children, because of Pashubhihi, cattle, wealth, and Brahmavarchasena, because of the own spiritual brilliance which he has because of his knowledge of Atmajnana. So with this, the seventh Anuvaka is over. Any questions? Okay. We may not have time for the full eighth Anuvaka, but I will just request Rituji to chant.
ॐ अन्नन्न परिचक्षेत तद्व्रतम् आपो वा अन्नं ज्योतिरन्नादम् अप्सुज्योतिः प्रतिष्ठितम् ज्योतिष्यापः प्रतिष्ठिताः तदेतदन्नमन्ये प्रतिष्ठितम् स य एतदन्नमन्ये प्रतिष्ठितं वेद प्रतिष्ठति अन्नवानन्नादो भवति महान् भवति प्रजया पशुभिर्ब्रह्मवर्चसेन महान् कीर्त्या.
So, as I said, this second Anuvaka gives the second pair, second rhythm, and second upasana are given here. The first one, annam na nindyat. Do not insult food. This is annam na parichakshita. Parichakshita means reject or waste, right? First was insult, this is waste. This is don't reject or don't waste. So annam na parichakshita. Do not waste food which has been served to you because this is disrespect to annam. So from this, especially in the Indian context, when you go to somebody's house, they continue to serve you even after you say no, right? So there is another aspect of it. If you continue to eat when you are full, you are actually disrespecting the Annamaya kosha. If you say no, or if you waste, then you are disrespecting Annam. So it's not a very nice choice, right? Either you disrespect Annam or you disrespect Annamaya kosha. What is the solution?
Take less on your plate.
Yes. Don't bring on a situation where you will have to waste. So even if your host or hostess is very, very insistent, you be more insistent and you say, no, 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 no. Finally, okay. But even if people go on serving, and put food in your plate when you say no, then when you waste, then the papam goes to the person who actually, without thinking of that, gave it to you, goes to the other person. So therefore, this applies both ways. When you call somebody home and you're serving him or her, stop when he says no, when she says no. And it also is applicable while you eat. Stop when you're full and take only that much. In fact, you should take slightly less. Then this vratam is served. So tad vratam, this is the vratam. Then second upasana, Agni and Jalam. Apo va annam, jyotirannadam. Apaha. The consumed is annam, consumed is apaha, water. Apo va annam means what that is consumed is water. And jyotihi annadam. The fire is annadaha, the consumer. So in all these, the words annam and annadaha have to be taken as consumed consumer. Therefore, apova annam, water is consumed. Jyotir annadam, the consumer is fire. And the fire here is what? Vaishvanaha Agni. Vaishvanaha Jyotihi, digestive fire. Right? And this, why is it said that water is consumed and fire is the consumer? Because the fire, the digestive fire, it consumes the water that you drink. Right? It takes the water and nourishes your body. And we have to give the reverse also. We have to supply the reverse. Apova annadaha jyotihi annam. Right? This has to be supplied. Apaha becomes the consumer and jyoti, the fire, becomes the consumed. What is the logic? How does water become the consumer of fire?
Water puts out fire.
So the human body during summertime heat, because of perspiration, it causes cooling.
Yeah, either way. So you can say water puts out fire, or you can say that water removes the fire from the body, the heat from the body. So this is the mutual sambandha of consumer-consumer. And then the second sambandha. What is that? Apsuhu jyotihi pratishtitam. Apsuhu jyotihi pratishtitam. This jyotihi, this Agni, apsuh pratishtitam is the supporter of Jalam. Now this has got a basis in Tattvabodha. What is that? Akashat sambabhuva, akashat vayuhu, vayus tejaha, tejasa apaha, tejasaha apaha. From fire came water. From water, Agni is born. And therefore, Agni is the Karanam and water is the Karyam. And whenever you say Karanam Karyam, remember that Karanam is always the support, Pratishtita, of the Karyam. Therefore, here Agni is the Pratishtita and Jalam is the Pratishtita. Agni is the Karana and water is the Karyam. Agni is support, supporter, and water is the supported. And again, we have to mentally add Jyotish Yapaha Pratisthita. Jalam is supporter and Agni is supported. How? The Jalatattvam is the rain-bearing clouds in the sky. And that rain-bearing clouds are the cause for the lightning, the Agni Tattvam. Therefore, that water is the cause for the lightning. Therefore, water is the supporter and lightning is the supporter. Okay. Also, as you said, in the physical body also, the Agni Tattvam is there in the form of a particular temperature, right? 98.4. And when you sweat, there is a cooling effect. Therefore, your bodily Agni is supported by Jala. So, Jalam is Pratishtita, Agni is Pratishtita. Then Tadetat annam, anne, pratishthitam. Hence this annam, annadaha sambandha is there. And saya etat annam, anne, pratishthitam veda, the one who meditates, does upasana upon this relationship, upon this sambandha, pratitishthati, he will be supported well in life and he will get all the worldly benefits also. Annavan annado bhavati, mahan bhavati, praja pashubhir brahmvarsasena, mahan kirtiya. You have to take the same explanation of these lines as in the previous Anuvaka. With this, the second Upasana is over, the second Pratham is over, and we will see the third one in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat, Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much.